This week begins with a beautiful conjunction between Venus and Jupiter in Cancer. Reaches a moment of emotional tension through Mercury square to Saturn and the Moon, and concludes with Venus in Leo. Together, these transits tell a story about how we relate to growth, fear, and courage. Venus and Jupiter meeting in Cancer is one of the most heart-centered alignments of the year. Jupiter expands whatever it touches, and Venus governs relationships, values, pleasure, and connection. In Cancer, their meeting reminds us that true growth rarely begins through force. More often, it begins through safety. Many people spend their lives trying to become stronger when they are actually in need to become softer. Cancer understands that a seed does not grow because someone shouts at it. It grows because the conditions are right. The soil is fertile, the water is present, the environment allows life to emerge naturally. This week invites us to ask, where in my life am I trying to force growth when what is needed is nourishment? For some, this might appear in relationships, for others in health, work, creativity, or spiritual practice. Sometimes the next breakthrough is not waiting on more effort, but on more trust. Yet, this week's skies does not remain entirely gentle. On June 10, Mercury in Cancer forms a square to Saturn and the Moon in Aries. Here we might feel tension between our emotions and our ability to communicate them clearly. Feelings seek expression, while fear seeks protection. Conversations might feel heavier than usual. We might become more sensitive to criticism, more defensive, or more hesitant to share what is truly on our minds. The challenge is not to suppress our feelings, nor to react impulsively to them. The challenge is to listen to what our emotions are attempting to teach us before immediately acting upon them. When Mercury travels through Cancer, communication becomes personal. We do not merely exchange information. We exchange emotional meaning. As a result, words may carry more weight than intended this week. A small comment might touch an old wound. A simple misunderstanding might awaken a larger insecurity. If this happens, remember that not every emotional reaction requires immediate action. Sometimes awareness itself is enough. Then, on June 13, Venus leaves Cancer and enters Leo. The energy shifts. Cancer asks us to protect the heart. Leo asks us to express it. Cancer seeks safety. Leo seeks visibility. Cancer nurtures what is growing beneath the surface. Leo brings it into the light. After spending several weeks reflecting on what truly matters, Venus in Leo encourages us to show up more fully in our relationships, our creativity, and our lives. Not through performance, not through ego, but through authenticity. There is a difference between seeking attention and allowing yourself to be seen. This distinction becomes important during the coming weeks. Many people hide not because they lack talent, wisdom, or love to give, but because visibility feels vulnerable. Venus in Leo reminds us that sharing our gifts requires courage. This theme is beautifully echoed in this week's Torah portion, Shlach. The 12 spies were sent into the Promised Land. They observed the same cities, the same inhabitants, the same opportunities, and the same challenges. When they returned, however, they did not bring back the same report. 10 focused on the giants. 2 focused on the promise. The land itself had not changed, only the interpretation had. This is one of the most enduring lessons in the Torah because it speaks directly to human nature. Two people can experience the same circumstances and walk away with completely different conclusions. One sees obstacles, another sees possibilities. One sees danger, another sees potential. Neither is necessarily ignoring reality. Rather, each is viewing reality through a different lens. The spies did not fail because giants existed. The giants were real. They failed because fear became the lens through which they interpret everything else. That lesson feels especially relevant this week. Mercury squares to Saturn might tempt us to focus on limitations, to focus on what would go wrong, to focus on the reason something cannot succeed. Yet Venus and Jupiter reminds us that growth remains possible. And Venus entering Leo reminds us that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is what happens when the promise becomes more compelling than the obstacle. As you move through this week, pay attention to the stories that you're telling yourself. What lens are you using? Are you focusing on the giants? Or are you focusing on the possibilities that exist beyond them? The answer may reveal more about your future than the circumstances themselves. May this week bring the wisdom to see clearly, the softness to remain open-hearted, and the courage to take the next step forward. Have a good week.